the fronts on top of each other, so these will be finished separately. And we'll sew from this drill hole down to here using a 3/4 inch or 2 centimeter, I think it's 2 centimeter, maybe 1.9 centimeter seam allowance. It's like, I think it's in between like 1.9 and 2 centimeters. So say 2 centimeter seam allowance from the drill hole down around here. But first of all, we have to stay stitch everything down and finish these edges. Okay, so from here on in, it's really important to be super precise with our sewing. And so that might mean, you know, unpicking it and doing it again if it's not quite matching up. So for instance, when we just sewed that seam from that drill hole around the crotch, it's really important that we do start exactly on that drill hole with our 3/4 inch seam allowance. So 3/4 inch or about 2 centimeters going around there. Here's that drill hole here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our fly and we're going to finish the edge here. So I've already done that, as you can see. Now there's a drill hole also on the fly piece. So I'm just going to fold this side down out of the way. I'm going to go right sides together, placing the fly on top of the front. That's the left front, where is left. And I'm going to sew the fly to the left front. And what I want to do is I want to match up this drill hole with that drill hole. So the drill hole that we started our sewing at just there, I want to match it up really well here. Okay, I'm going to pop a pin in it just for safekeeping. Okay, that's where I want to finish, or start actually. And then I'm going to sew straight up here, maintaining our 3/4 inch or 2 centimeter seam allowance. Then I'm going to bring you over to my machine to just show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so we want to match this drill hole right against where we finished that crotch stitching there. So I'm just going to put it right in there, and we're going to sew up the center front using our 2 centimeter 3/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just trying to make sure I start exactly where that crotch seam ended. This is the second time I've shot this. The first time it didn't record properly. Okie dokie. I'm just going to get some scissors and I'll be right back. Okay. So I'm going to just grade this. So I'm going to just trim away some of that fly. When I get near that drill hole, I'm just going to stop my grading. We can always come back later and grade some more if we need to. It wasn't the world's straightest cutting, was it? It's probably because I'm trying to do it at a very awkward angle. There we go, that's better. And I'm going to understitch. So keeping the seam allowances to this side, I'm flipping that fly back. You can see, oh, I didn't go perfectly to where the drill hole was, but it's okay. It's just like a couple of millimeters. So I'm going to understitch now. Okay, so this fabric is really giving me a pain because it keeps stretching, but that's okay. We're going to flip it underneath here, flip it back, and I'm going to pin stitch up this end. So here it is from the wrong side, so I'm just going to flip that fly to the inside, and you can see it's still free to move around. I'm going to pin stitch on the wearer's left, just down here. When you get down to this drill hole, do not back tack. So just leave a long tail of your top stitching thread, and I'll show you how to pull it through. Okay, so I pin stitched up that edge. I pressed it and then I pin stitched it, and I left my long tail here. So if I flip to the wrong side, I can show you how I'll tie that off. So here's the wrong side, and I can see my bobbin thread here because it's the all-purpose thread. If I just gently give that a little tug, it's just pulled the top stitching thread just through for me. So I can just pull it all the way through like that, and then I can just literally tie it in a knot to secure it. I'm going to tie it a few times. And then I'm going to trim it off. Okay. So here's the next step in our fly. I'm going to press this right side back, but I'm not going to press it back the full seam allowance. So this full seam allowance, remember, is 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters. I'm going to fold it back halfway. So I'm going to fold it back 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch back, which means that it's going to, down this end here, it's going to not match with that drill hole. And that's okay. So I'm going to press that and be back with my zipper and my fly shield. Okay, I have switched to a zipper foot on my sewing machine, and the needle is to the right hand side of that zipper foot. I also have my fly shield and my fly here. So I'm going to unzip my fly, and I'm just going to match this zipper tape to the edge of that fly shield, and I'm going to stitch it down. So it doesn't matter if it extends off the top and off the bottom a little bit, we're just going to match up that bottom end of the zipper tape with the end of the fly shield. And I'm just going to stay stitch that down. So it doesn't have to be super close to the teeth. Okay, so I'm starting with the zipper open. I'm just going to move the camera. There we go. Okay, when I'm nearing the bottom, what I'm going to do is finish with my needle down, lift my presser foot, and zip up the zipper, just to get that zipper pull out of the way, and then sew the rest of the way. Okay, so we now have our zipper attached to our fly shield. Okay, so I pressed this right hand side just under that 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, and you'll notice at the bottom here the stitching for the crotch ends there, but the fold is to this side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fly shield zipper assembly and I'm going to pop it behind there, just like this, and I'm going to scooch it down so that the zipper stop, so this metal zipper stop is just a hair above where that crotch seam ends, just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to line up this folded edge about 1 millimeter, pretty close to the zipper teeth, and you can pin that in. It's a bit awkward to pin on camera. And after I've pinned it most of the way, so I'm pinning through all those layers. I'm going to unzip the zipper just a bit to get this last part. You can see that what's happened here now is my fly shield is not matching the top there, so I'm going to have to repin it. I need that fly shield to match the top there, so let's try that. It's very possible with this particular denim that it's stretched a little bit because I'm having a lot of trouble with it stretching out. It's not stable at all. It's not a very good denim to choose to demonstrate with. The one that I was using yesterday would have been much better. Yeah, it's really stretched out. So I'm gonna just give it a bit of an ease, but hopefully you won't need to do that. If you are really having difficulty with what I'm having, with your denim stretching out, you can hand baste this, just pop a few basting stitches in, and that might help. If you just like tack it down, baste it down, it's gonna help you. Okay, so I've kind of... Okay, so I had to sew that off camera because I required my head to get in there. This denim is not behaving itself for me, but that's okay. Hopefully yours won't be quite as difficult. So I've stitched that down, I've given it a little press, and then the next step is to put the left side over the right side. So you can see that at the bottom here, it's all lined up, which means that this edge here is actually going to overlap. It's going to overlap by about 1 centimeter. So I'm going to lay it down flat, and then you can put a couple of pins in here, just lining up those center fronts. It's actually quite hard to pin. It's just very temporary, very much temporary. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this left side back, just kind of like a book. When I do that, I'm just making sure that this fly stays flat to the zipper tape. So I'm just going to put my hand there, like this. I don't want it to move. Then I'm just going to gently just lift this fly up and run my fingers underneath this zipper tape and just grab that like that. And I'm going to put a pin in it. Okay, I'm going to do that again just to show you. So I have my center fronts lined up, which means that this left side is overlapping the right side. It's all really flat. I'm just putting a couple of pins in there just to hold it down. Then I'm going to put one hand here on top of those pins, and I'm just going to open out this left front. My hand's still under there, and then I'm going to take this hand, I'm going to put it on top of that fly, holding it down firmly. Just open that out, and then just run my fingers under just this fly piece so I can see the zipper tape. Run my finger under the zipper tape and grab just the zipper tape. I want to see where that zipper tape is hitting against that fly. Which is about here, and I'm just going to put a pin in it. At this point I can flip it over, and then I'm going to just take a seam gauge in this case, it's about 1.5 inches from that edge. Now, because I cut this fly nice and straight, I can just pin this zipper tape to the fly, 1.5 inches. Now, yours might be not exactly 1.5 inches. That's okay, but the important thing is that you're going to keep it an even distance all the way along. So from the edge of this zipper tape to the edge of the fly, for me, it's 1.5 inches. Now, I've pinned it there. What I'll do when I get to this end bit, when I sew it down, is I'll unzip it a little bit. Now, what I am sewing is I am just sewing the zipper tape to the fly only, okay? The fronts are not involved, they're out of the way. So, just checking everything's out of the way. I don't want to sew any of this down. Just the zipper tape to the fly only. And I'm going to sew that down. Okay, so let's check what we sewed. So if you're seeing any stitching on the front apart from the center front pin stitching that we did, then you'll have to unpick something. So let's have a look on the inside. You can see that row of stitching, the zipper tape to the fly only, and make sure that that is not attached to the fly shield. In fact, I think in the instructions I say to pin it out of the way, which is probably a good idea. If you're seeing any stitching that's out of place, just go ahead and unpick it and sew it again. The fly is probably the trickiest thing. So check that when you unzip it, you can get in. The fly shield is usually there. At this point, what we're going to need to do is just do a little clip on the back. So this is what the back looks like. The wrong side. Fly shield, fly. We want these seam allowances to go this way. So I'm going to put a little clip. I've actually already done it. But it's just above the end of the fly shield, but it's below the drill hole, just so it doesn't weaken it too much. And that's just snipped about 1 centimeter in, just enough so that I can push these over to this side and underneath the fly as well, so that those seam allowances can sit really flat like that. Okay, I'm gonna just pin this out of the way again. Just that fly shield, and I'm gonna go to the right side. I'm going to repin my center fronts into place. So you want to prioritize it being flat over everything. There's a bit of a lump here just because I've got my fly shield pinned back, but not my fly. There we go. Okay, so now you're going to take your fly stitching template and place it along the front. Now, whether you place it along the center front or along that row of stitching is up to you. I would suggest that if you are making one of the smallest sizes, so say A to D, then you would want to put it along that edge just to make it a bit narrower proportionally. And if you're making one of the bigger sizes, say, well, one of the other sizes, then I would make it wider. So I'm making a size F, so I'm going to line it up with the top stitching, the pin stitching. It's really important at this point that you test your marking tool that it's going to come off cleanly. You don't want to draw on the front of your jeans and then not have it removable. So I'm just using a chalk wheel here, which is very removable. If anything, sometimes it's a little bit too removable. And I'm just carefully marking that in. Now, you can use a ruler to make sure that it's gonna be straight or parallel with that edge stitching. Didn't do a great job down there. Let me do it again. So it's worth getting this marking just right because it will really help you. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my top stitching. So this is where the fly gets attached to the front. So this line with the template is going to be the inner line of stitching, and then you'll do one just a foot's width this side of it. Take it slow. Make sure that at this bottom end here, try and keep that fly shield out of the way. Take your time. If you need to redo it, just do it again. Maybe have a break, come back to it. It's the part that's going to be the most visible. I forgot to say, at this end down here, make sure you don't sew over the zipper stop, and also don't back tack here, just pull it through to the back like we did before and tie the ends off. Okay, there we go. That's not bad. So the next step we need to do, I'll just show you from the back what it looks like. So I did keep that fly shield free in the end. I just kind of folded it up and out of the way as I was going, took it slowly, and it was fine. And then I've pulled the ends through and tied them off. So this is free. But we don't want it free forever. So I'm just going to tuck that seam allowance under to the left. I need to just increase that snip just a tiny bit. I just don't want to clip too deeply. Okay, there we go. So I've got that tucked under there. It's all sitting very neatly. Then I'm going to flip it to the right side. So I need to do 2 bar tacks, and I need to do my top stitching and edge stitching. So the reason that we ended here just by tying it off is so that we can start our pin stitching exactly where this stopped and continue it down through all the way through the crotch. And then it'll look like it was just one row of stitching because there won't be back tacking there. So we'll do that, and we'll do a row of top stitching just this side of it. Okay, and then we're going to do 2 bar tacks, and the bar tacks are functional. So the first one of them goes around here. At the bottom of the zipper. It has to go below the zipper stop because otherwise you'll break your needle. The other one is going to go around here, and its purpose, I'm just going to unzip the zipper to show you. So if we had this like this, the fly shield could just like flap about. We don't want that. So the other one is just going to go where that fly shield crosses this stitching here. So you've just got to feel where it is, and the other one's going to go about there. So one will go at the bottom and one will go wherever that fly shield crosses your top stitching. When you do just make sure you test your bar tack on a scrap and before you sew it on your jeans, because it's a real pain to unpick. I find that my stitch length has to be a little bit longer using the top stitching thread than using all-purpose. So you might not want to use your like automatic bar tacking function if you have one. You might just want to use a stitch like a zigzag width of about 2 and a stitch length of about 3/4 of a turn. But just a smidge more than you would for like a buttonhole. Okay, so I have pin stitched and top stitched this crotch curve. You just have to make sure you're holding all the fabric out of the way. And then I have done my bar tacks. So then you should celebrate, because honestly, doing a jeans zipper fly isn't the easiest thing, and so we're there. So the rest should be more straightforward. So let's move on.